Hello everyone and welcome to Translations. Please make sure you have page 13 in front of you from your packet. Today we're going to discuss translations. Translation is basically when we take a point or an object and we move it or we slide it. We can move it to the right or left, and we could also move it up or down. The correct notation is represented right here. It's going to be a capital T with little numbers next to it, so -2, -1. And in this point, we are going to take the coordinate 5, -3, and we are going to translate it with a -2, -1. In translations, that means that we're actually going to add or subtract the numbers that I see here. So I'm going to take +5 and subtract 2. +5 subtract 2 is going to give me a 3. And then I'm going to do the same thing for the y coordinates. So I'm going to take -3 minus 1, and that's going to give me -4. So if I was to translate this point, 5, -3, and I moved left 2 and down 1, then I would be at 3, -4. Let's take a look at the next one. On this next one, it's talking about taking the coordinate -8, -3, and it gives us this weird rule, but this rule is exactly the same as a translation of 4, -1. Think about it for a second. It's actually flat out telling us to add 4 and to subtract 1. So if I was to add 4 to -8, I would get -4, and if I was to subtract 1 from -3, I would get -4. Just be careful with your positives and negatives. So in this case, we are going to do -8 plus 4 is going to give me -4. And then I'm going to do -3 minus 1 is also going to give me -4. So you want to make sure that you're clear on your integers and that you don't mess it up. Also, in this case, this +4 means that we're going to the right 4, and this -1 means that we're going down 1. Okay, let's take a look at the next one. The next one's rather interesting. It's saying that someone came along and took -5, 5, and suddenly they were at 7, 1. And your job in this case is to figure out what numbers go here. So if we were to look at -5 and then all of a sudden we're at +7, you have to think about what number was added to -5 to get +7. And that correct answer would be 12. So think about that for a second. -5 plus some number is equal to +7. If I added 5 to both sides, I would realize that that number must be equal to 12. It's a little bit easier with the y coordinates. If I was at 5, but now all of a sudden I'm at 1, I must have subtracted 4. So it would be 12, -4, which is the translation. So in that case, we were trying to come up with the translation, a little bit different than if they gave us the translation. The next one takes that one step further. So we're going to go -2, 5. And someone did a translation, and it brought us to -4, 4. And our job is to figure out what that translation was. So in this case, we could figure out from -2 to -4, the person must have subtracted 2. And to get from 5 to -4, they must have subtracted 9. Now we're going to apply the same translation to this coordinate. So it's going to be 1, 4 underneath the same translation of -2, -9. And that coordinate 1 minus 2 is -1, and 4 minus 9 is -5. So in this case, it's a little bit different because it's asking us to first figure out the translation, which in this case is this part. We had to figure out the translation and then apply it to the new one. So in this case, we took 1, 4, we subtracted 2 and subtracted 9, and got -1, -5. All right, this next question. It says translate the image 1 unit down and 3 units to the right. Before I do anything, I'm going to write that as a translation. 1 unit down would be -1, and 3 units to the right would be +3. So I'm going to take my pencil, I'm going to start at A, and I'm going to count 3 units to the right. So 1, 2, 3, and then I'm going to go down 1 unit, and that is now A prime. I'm going to do that for the other letters as well. So I'm going to go to B, 3 units to the right, 1, 2, 3, and down 1 is right there. That's going to be B prime. I'll do it for the next one, letter C, 1, 2, 3, and down 1. So that's my C prime. And I'll also do it for D. So 1, 2, 3, and down 1. So that's my D prime. Now if I connect these, I'm going to have this, this, and this. And think about it for a second. If I looked at this first quadrilateral, if you will, A, B, C, D, and then I moved it to the right, if I looked at this first quadrilateral here, and I moved it down 1 and to the right 3, then I would be at my second quadrilateral. Lucky for us, it doesn't ask for the coordinates because we're actually on graph paper, but we're not on a coordinate plane. This translation is 3, -1, to the right 3 and down 1. Now we're going to continue on to either the back or a blank piece of paper. So please write this down on a separate piece of paper. A translation is typically written with a capital T and then 2 numbers in parentheses. And it's important to realize that this first number is going to affect your x's. And in the first number, if it is positive, it's going to move to the right. And if it's negative, it's going to move to the left. And the second number deals with your y's. So think about that for a second. If it's positive, it's going to move to the up direction. And if it's negative, it's going to move to the down direction. So if I was to give you a translation of, let's say, -5, 3, we automatically know that because the 5 is negative, it's going to go 5 left. And we also know that because the 3 is positive, it's going to move up 3. Please make sure you understand that notation, and thanks. I'll see you later.